Now to an update on yet another First Coast News exclusive. The Chinese grandparents picked up by Border Protection just as their dream vacation ended are reported as safe tonight. We told you last night how their American daughter was outraged that her parents' U.S. trip was cut short despite a valid visa. Julia Janae is on your side tonight getting answers from Carnival Cruise Line. She joins us now live.
That's right. They are safe in Beijing, China tonight. That's according to the family's attorney. But they are over 400 miles away from the city where they live, Shenyang. Their family here says they were taken by Border Protection officials so quickly that they didn't have any money or the keys to their house there in China on their person. They're still trying to figure out exactly what went wrong. A family continues to sort through what happened around 36 hours ago when a family cruise turned into an immigration nightmare.
Then where are they? You told me I could give them the money.
Joseph McDewitt video recorded his last attempts with Border Protection, asking to see his in-laws who were in custody.
You told me earlier that they could say goodbye to their grandparents.
Okay. Have a nice day.
Are you reading what this says?
Joseph McDewitt and his wife and children are American citizens, and they had been hosting his wife's parents from China.
I would have rather not went on the cruise and kept my family intact, not the other way around. They should have never let us on that boat.
Carnival told us that they do collect passenger information and turn it over to Customs and Border Protection and then set sail. If they're asked for follow-up information, they do provide it, but they say ultimately it's up to the passenger to make sure they are complying with immigration laws. Carnival also paid for the airline tickets that took the two detainees back to China and told First Coast News they have to shell out the money to get their passenger home if it turns out they have broken U.S. immigration laws. Now, on that Carnival trip, McDewitt told us that they did get questions from the staff when they first tried to board, but they were told to go ahead, enjoy the trip, and that they would all be worked out during the sail. Of course, that didn't happen once they docked back here in Jacksonville. We'll continue to follow this story for you and bring you the latest, both on air and online. For now, reporting live, Julia Janae, First Coast News, on your side.